Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Learn with Virali. I'm Virali, your guide on this coding adventure. In today's video, we'll learn how to create radio buttons and checkboxes in our forms in HTML. So let's get started. So first, we'll create a blueprint of our code. So let's use the VS Code shortcut to give an exclamation mark and press enter. Now I'll modify the title of the document as in forms in HTML part 2. Now, directly jumping onto the body tag, in order for us to create forms in HTML, we have to use a form tag, as we had talked already about this in our previous video. Now, this time we are going to learn about creating radio buttons and checkboxes. So that's where let's put up a comment on the top saying that this is for radio buttons. And now, in order for us to create radio buttons, we have to use an input type element, but this time, instead of using the type as text, we'll modify the type as radio here. So let me just give it as input type equals to radio. And then I'll give an ID. Here we are trying to build up a radio button, helping the user to select which out of the 3 given options is his or her favorite language. So here I'm giving the first one as HTML. Now in the radio button, please remember that the name variable should always be the same, as in it should belong to the same group, just so that only one selection is allowed outside all of the available connections. So here it should be favorite underscore language, and then I'll give the value here as HTML. Since our icon or in the small circle is ready for showing it up as a radio button, next information that we would need would be the text that should be displayed in order for the user to select that. So here I'm interested in displaying it as HTML, but as we discussed in our previous video, we have to use a label in order for us to bind this text with the input type. So that's where I'm going to use the value of HTML here, which is same as the ID given on the top input type. Now let me just duplicate these two values in here just to have more options. So now in the next input type, again it will be a radio button, but this time the options are going to be different. So instead of HTML, I'll be putting it up as CSS, modifying it everywhere in place of HTML just to match with the ID and the for element. And the third option should be JavaScript. So let us put it up as JavaScript here, here, and here. Now let us save this video and check it out onto the browser. How does it look like? So let's go on to our browser to check it. How does it look like? And there you go. If you see that these are the 3 different texts, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, wherein there are small circles which are acting as those selectable radio button or icons. When if I click on HTML gets selected, but as soon as I click on CSS, the selection now changes to CSS, which makes us understand that only one out of the 3 options can be selected and not all the 3 at the same time. So now let us go back and use or learn another form element, which is going to be building up checkboxes inside our forms. So let's get started. Going back to my code and commenting it here again, as this is going to be now for checkboxes. So in order for us to build up the checkboxes, this time we have to use input type equals to checkbox. So here we'll give input type equals to checkbox. And now here the ID and the names are gonna be different. So if I give the ID as HTML, name as HTML, and value as HTML again, I'll provide a label again, unlike the above radio button case, in order for the user to know that this is for HTML. Giving the for element again is similar to HTML. So now that we have one checkbox defined, I'm going to duplicate this again the next time, making sure that we are building multiple selectable elements, as in this can be CSS, the name can be CSS, and the ID can be CSS at the same time. So here the 4 should match with the above ID. Again, the third one will make it up as JavaScript, name as JavaScript, and ID as JavaScript. So I'm changing all the values here to correspond back to JavaScript. Now let us save this and go back to our browser to check how does our code look like. So going back to the browser, this is how it is going to look like. So now if you can see that we have a squares, which makes us understand that this is a multiple selectable element that I can select. If I want to select all the 3 options together, I can select. This is what the property of a checkbox looks like. As in, you can select multiple options together, wherein radio buttons just allow to select one option at the same time. In the next video, we'll learn more form elements, as in to understand how to build up the submit buttons and how to have autocompletes in our form. So until then, stay tuned and happy coding.